Lesson 8. Further promises to Abraham. These all died in faith, not having received the promises. Reading Genesis 13, 15 and 17. Objective. We are shown a great example of faith by the way in which Abraham believed God's promises. This lesson is to show that faith is required of all those who desire to be heirs with him in the promises. Background. Both Abram and Lot prospered and their wealth continued to increase, along with their flocks and herds. Genesis 13 verses 2 to 5. Strife developed between the two companies. Verse 6 to 7. Which led Abram to take action and to seek a separation from Lot. Verses 8 to 9. He appealed to Lot that there should be no strife among them, for we be brethren, and gave Lot the choice of all the land before them. Lot looked and chose the well-watered plains of Jordan, verse 10, which to him was the obvious choice to support his flocks and herds. Abram remained in the harsh hill country of the land of Canaan, verse 12. God defines the land of promise. Genesis 13 verses 14 to 17. After Lot had left Abram, God gave Abram another great promise. This time Abram was told to lift up his eyes and look in every direction. Verses 14 to 17. All the land that Abram would see would become his possession and that of his seed forever. The full extent of the land is detailed in Genesis 15 verse 18 to 21, which included all the nations from the river Nile to the river Euphrates. We are told in Acts 7 verse 5 that during his lifetime Abram received no inheritance in that land. He died in the sure hope of the resurrection, believing that God would certainly fulfill the promise he had made. At this time he had no child to become heir with him in the promise. But Abram believed that God would rectify that as well, even though he did not know how. The promise of a seed. Genesis 15 to 17. Genesis 15 verse 2 records that Abram inquired of Yahweh how the seed of promise could be developed when he had no children. He knew that a child must be born to continue his family line in order that the promises God had made to him could be fulfilled. Yahweh plainly told him that a child would come from his own body. Verse 4. He was told to go out of the tent and to look at the stars. Look now toward heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. He said to him, so shall thy seed be. Verse 5. Immediately Abram accepted that a child would be born to him through which he would have an innumerable seed. Abram displayed an amazing faith and confidence in God's words at a time when he knew that he and Sarai had not been able to have children. In other words, he believed in something which was humanly impossible. Genesis 16 records the birth of Ishmael, the son of Abram and Hagar. Hagar was Sarai's maid. This was an attempt by Sarai to solve the problem of the promised seed. But Ishmael was the son of the bondwoman, Hagar. When Ishmael was 13 years old, God again appeared to Abram and assured him of the certainty of the covenant in chapter 17, verses 1 to 2. The special seed of promise was to be the child not only of Abram but also of Sarai, who was not then able to bear children. He would be born by the miraculous power of God. 17 verse 19. Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. Abram was now 99 and Sarai was 90. The seed explained. Genesis 17. The promise to Abraham in Genesis 12 involved two seeds. They are: 1. I will make of thee a great nation, the natural seed of Abram. 2. In thee shall all families of the earth be blessed, the spiritual seed of Abraham. The natural seed of Abram became the people of Israel. God made a covenant with Abram to give this nation the land of Canaan as their everlasting possession and to be their God. As a token of that covenant, Yahweh required all their males to be circumcised. Genesis 17, verse 7 to 13. God made the covenant, and it was their responsibility to keep it. The spiritual seed of Abraham was quite different. He was to be the father of many nations. Genesis 17, verse 5. As a token of this covenant, God changed both the names of Abram and Sarai. He added the 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet to each name. Abram became Abraham and Sarai became Sarah. Verses 5 and 15. 5 is the number of grace. This promise would be fulfilled by grace. It would include a calling to all nations. It would not matter what nationality they were, but it required a response in faith that they might become heirs of the promise through the grace of God. Those who desire to be of this seed must be baptized, both Jews and Gentiles. Galatians 3:26-29. By so doing, they have become heirs of the world with faithful Abraham. Romans 4, verse 12-13. The Israelites demonstrated their faith by circumcision. It taught them that they must cut off the flesh and follow God in faith. Today, baptism is the token by which we demonstrate our faith. We must cut off the old way of life and walk as new people before God. Colossians 2, verse 11 and Philippians 3, verse 3. True circumcision is a cutting off of the flesh in our lives to become spiritual Jews. It is circumcision of the heart. See Romans 2, verse 28-29. Basic Bible teaching, justification by faith. The word justification means being made righteous by having our sins forgiven. We all fall short of God's righteousness, but if we desire to honour him, he is full of loving kindness to forgive us. For as far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed our transgressions from us. Psalms 103, verse 11-14. He is ready to consider us as righteous when we show a willingness to believe and honour him. He counts or imputes righteousness on the basis of faith. This principle can be seen in the life of Abraham. Yahweh was pleased and honoured by Abram's immediate and full belief. Abram believed, and Yahweh counted it to him for righteousness. Genesis 15, verse 6. On that basis he was called the friend of God. James 2, verse 23. What does this mean? Romans 4, verse 3 explains that Abram had done nothing except believe at the time when he was considered righteous by God. It is only on this basis that any of us can ever be considered righteous in God's sight. God is honoured when we believe that he can and will do what he has promised. How do we show what we believe? By submitting to his commandment of being baptized into Christ. This is an acknowledgement by us that God is righteous. We have need of forgiveness for our sins, and we want our old life with our past sins washed away. By forgiving our sins, God justifies us. He looks on us as righteous. Justification by forgiveness of sins is the greatest blessing of the Abrahamic Covenant. Lot saved from Sodom in Genesis 18 and 19. Lot suffered as a result of choosing to live in the plain of Jordan. He had chosen the easy way, which appealed to his eyes. We read of God's estimation in this area in Genesis 13 verses 12 to 13. The city of the plain were wicked before him. Lot had become caught in this corrupting environment. 3 men visited Abraham, and he showed them great hospitality. Genesis 18 verses 1 to 8. It turned out that they were actually angels. After eating a meal with Abraham, the angels advised him of their plan to visit Sodom. Verses 20 to 21. God had tolerated the wickedness of this city long enough, and now was about to destroy it. Fearful for Lot and his household, Abraham pleaded with the angels to spare the city if there were any righteous people in it. Verse 23. The angels assured him that if only 10 righteous could be found, the city would not be destroyed. Verse 32. The story shows us just how wicked Sodom was. Lot was the only righteous man in Sodom, who vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. 2 Peter 2 verse 8. All his household and his servants had sunk into the immoral ways of the city. God was merciful to Lot. The angels took him and his wife and 2 daughters by the hand and hurried them out of the city. However, his wife could not bear to leave, and looking back she became a pillar of salt, as fire and brimstone destroyed the cities of the plain. Only Lot and his 2 daughters were saved. Genesis 19 verses 29 to 30. Principle for living, the warning of Lot. Jesus warns us that as it was in the days of Lot, even thus shall it be in the days when the Son of Man shall be revealed. Luke 17 verses 28 to 30. Let us not be deceived. The wickedness of Sodom is all about us in the way people live, talk, act and dress. Jesus warns us that the world of our times is just like Sodom. The Apostle Peter tells us the judgment on Sodom was an example to all those who live ungodly. 2 Peter 2 verse 6. Take the warning, for evil communications corrupt good manners. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 33. God encourages us to avoid wickedness rather than think ourselves strong enough to resist it. He also tells us of the disastrous outcome if we neglect to heed that warning. This leaves us with the responsibility to act accordingly. 2 Peter 3 verses 11 to 12. Remember Lot's wife. Luke 17 verse 32. Summary. The wealth of Abram and Lot caused strife between their herdsmen, and they separated. Lot unwisely chose what looked attractive, but which eventually led to disaster. God changed Abram's name to Abraham and Sarai's name to Sarah. God gave Abraham further promises about his seed, both natural and spiritual. Circumcision of the heart identifies the faithful seed of Abraham. God destroyed Sodom as a warning for ungodliness. These lessons are the words taken from the Christadelphian Sunday School Association notes. www.cssa.asn.au, used with permission. Email your questions to readthebible2@gmail.com, and we look forward to you listening to the next lesson, which will be called Abraham and Isaac, the Promised Seed.